Hello and welcome to another episode of The Empowered Author. I'm Bonnie Wagner-Stafford from Ingenium Books, and with me is Trina Holt. Trina is a former ghostwriter with deep experience in memoir, and what we're going to talk about today is memoir and really kind of explore the reasons that we might be reluctant, resistant, hesitant, maybe even afraid to write memoir. And I love this topic a lot. And we have just published on the Ingenium Books blog a guest post that Trina wrote. I'm going to provide a link to it here so that you can go and take a look. But it's, in addition to being a beautiful piece of writing, I think it raises some very interesting topics that I'd like to talk about now. So Trina, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, glad to be here.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Trina and I is we both live on sailboats, just in a little bit different parts of the world. Trina is not on her boat right now, but I am on my boat right now.
I'm happy sitting right now for about 3 weeks, and I'm looking forward to getting back home, to be honest.
Exactly.
In the water.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. But so digging into the topic of the day, which is writing memoir, maybe Trina, from your experience and your thoughts, what are your, why do you think we resist writing memoir? And is that something like, it's like, oh, I would like to write a memoir, but I couldn't for X, Y, Z?
I think there's A, B, C, and X, Y, Z reasons to not write a memoir that hold us back. I think there are a lot of reasons. In fact, I remember I wrote an entire memoir for a woman whose English was not her first language. So it took the better part of a year to write the book, and she seemed very keen. And then she still to this day hasn't published it. And that was, gosh, I don't know, 10 years ago. So I think she's publishing for the same reasons that a lot of people don't write them in the first place. So I think that people get afraid that they're going to offend family members, that they'll be judged. It's a really vulnerable thing to write a memoir because you really are opening yourself up. I mean, a memoir. So memoir being distinct from biography, and I suppose we'll probably use the terms interchangeably, although of course they're not. They're different things.
Yeah, I don't think we should. Let's not, because we'll just confuse people.
To distinguish between them, we'll just biography, memoir, as though they're the same things.
Yeah, okay. No, they're not the same thing. Not the same thing. So, in fact, thank you for raising this, because I really do want
to the question that you asked me as to why people don't. I think people are more inclined to do a memoir than they are to do a biography. Because a memoir, of course, being more focused on their interests or something that, highlighting a specific piece that they want to share, whereas a biography is more like, all of it's out there. So
yeah,
there is a difference. Yeah.
Right. So the just for the sake of clarity and for viewers, the difference between my biography, memoir, and autobiography, and we'll do it in the other order. Memoir is a more distinct, focused treatment around a specific theme or event or series of events. So, and whereas a biography is, I was born in a little small town, and I'm just about to die now. It doesn't have to be where you're just about to die, but it is your entire life story written by you. An autobiography is an entire life story, but written by someone else about you. So memoir.
Autobiography is by yourself. A biography is written by somebody else. So it's the other way around.
Did I just reverse it? But yes, biography. Yes, exactly. Biography written by somebody else. Autobiography written by you about yourself. So in either case, and I hear what you're saying with respect to memoir maybe being a little easier than an autobiography. However, I think for a memoir to be a really good experience for the reader, there is still that requirement to be vulnerable, to reveal maybe the darkest sides of yourself or the less perfect sides of yourself. A reader isn't going to buy into it if it's all glossed over. Yeah. So that opens the door to why, maybe I'm not quite ready.
Yeah. You really have to be, I think, strong in your comfortable in your own skin. You need to be, ready and willing to take criticism, or to hear people say, yeah, no, that's not quite how I remember it. I've read several biographies, and they'll preface it like, gosh, I read one recently, and it was something to the effect of, I'm not going to tell how it happened. I'm going to tell how I remember it happening.
Yes.
So this author, the cop to it, straight off the top. This is my story. It's not your story. This is my story. And, we have an event. Like, think of eyewitness testimony. You have one event, say a car crash, and 5 people saw it. Well, there are 5 different versions of that same event, and some of them may be completely erroneous, and some of them are bang on accurate. So biography and memoir can kind of be like that. And I think that if you're not willing to say, yeah, this is my story, and own that as your story, it can be very daunting, because if you're subject to, if you're sensitive to sort of that criticism, or afraid of what people might say or think, yeah, you might have a problem with that. Or if there's sometimes there are legal reasons, I suspect that one of my clients may publish posthumously, because there are things in that memoir that could endanger, that person or that person's family. So perhaps posthumously published. There are a few reasons. There are quite a few reasons why people don't go at it.
Yeah, I would like to talk about that the notion that you raised of the perspective, and I like to talk about it as the difference between a capital T truth and my truth, and that what we're aiming for is not the capital T truth, because we don't know what that is. At least we didn't know it at the time that we were going through the events that we're writing about in the memoir. And the second part of that is that because time has passed between the event that you're writing about, and you have grown and changed, what's really important is to recognize that you write about that event with the perspective that you had at the time, as opposed to with the perspective that you have now. And you allow that to develop through the story arc, at least when you're talking about those events. So just what you said was beautiful, is that, this is my story as I remember it, not necessarily as it actually happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with the clients that you've worked with on in Memoir, have you had conversations around that? How did they go? How did you handle that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think every person is completely different to work with. So I have ghostwritten memoirs, and I have also co-written one memoir where, my name's there. I've kind of moved away from ghostwriting now, but I still write, don't get me wrong. And I still do memoir. I just don't do it secret anymore. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of people going, yes, I wrote this, when I know, actually you didn't, so that piece is kind of, I'm over that now. So, but I do enjoy writing memoirs and biographies. And I think it's such an honor to share somebody's life, and to have them gift me with the honor of writing their story is amazing. It's such a deep, deep honor. And every person, I'm circling back to your question, but every person is so unique and individual in the way they want to approach it, in that every person's story is different as well. So, for example, I might sit with somebody, and I might do interviews with them for a month or two, and write up the interviews, and then did I get this right? Did I get that right? And then I'll go back and I'll write. Another person might pre-write it, or they might talk into their phone and tell the story, and I'll get a page or 3 pages, which I'll then turn into basically a chapter. Or some people, I've yet to run into anyone who has objected to my embellishments. I think that's one of the differences between me writing somebody else's memoir or biography versus them writing their own is that I have to kind of make it up a little bit. Not
Right.
make sense, not make up the core story. But if you're gonna, I went shopping, I bought shoes, I was with Linda, we bumped into Jack, and that's what I get, right? So I was like, okay, it was a dark and stormy night, and the malls were open late, and so we drove trepidatiously, So, I kind of build it into, I'm adding the elements that make something interesting. So, and then, and I turn Linda into a living, breathing person, and so I might have to get back to that person and say, okay, so Linda, tell me about Linda. Tall, short, skinny, fat, happy, sad, angry, good sense of humor. And so I get those things and I try to imagine, okay, well, what makes a conversation, what would she say in a conversation with my client? And I try to get a sense of my client as best as I can so that I can really write in first person. Who is this person? When I say I need to know, like, is this person prone to, gosh, I have one client, I just loved him because he would always come up with these alliterations. He would say, well, we did this thing about mosquitoes in Saskatchewan, and the only kind of mosquito repellent in Saskatchewan is a shotgun, like stuff like this, and be like, okay, yeah, I can work with that. So he had this kind of character piece about him that I was able to then carry through other chapters. So, okay, he likes to, do sort of quirky things like that. So I'll work with that. So having to get to really understand your client and then trying to get the best, the most information you can about characters and place. And I do a ton of research as well. I think I'm getting off topic here, but I'm kind of getting excited about the topic.
Yeah, I was interested in the inner revelations and the inner journey. So you were getting to that, and that's, I think, for memoir, whether somebody's helping you by ghostwriting your memoir or whether you're writing it yourself. It's fine to be going to the mall to buy shoes and you run into Jack, but what's the inner turmoil?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the inner challenge, and what's the risk? And it's that inner journey.
So it turns out that Jack was, the first boyfriend that the client had ever had, and he raped her. And now,
right,
Linda and Jack are kind of, they're making googly eyes at each other. And Linda, or the client, is just beside herself because she wants to, no, you don't want to, so there's some tension there, So yeah, the backstory and do you want to talk about being raped at a young, and so those are a lot of those questions too. Like, I mean, do you want to talk about controversial things like rape, or did you have an abortion, or do you want to talk about money situation that you had that you might have stolen because you were so broke, and so there are moral and ethical, societal reasons why you might not want to talk about things. And yet at the same time, if you can, here's the thing, I mean, we all do the best we can with what we've got in the moment. And I think if you can honor that notion, if you can really be true to the fact that, yeah, I did steal a pair of shoes because, I'd been wearing the same pair for the last 3 years and the duct tape was duct taped. And, and I needed shoes. I didn't have the money and I needed shoes, and I had a job interview, or, you had whatever reason for doing it. Or, you know what, maybe you're just angry and you lashed out, and maybe there's no legitimate, real societally forgivable reason. Maybe you're just angry and you lost it. And can you forgive yourself for that? Can you in your heart now forgive yourself for losing it on somebody or something? You broke somebody's windshield or keyed their car or whatever. And there was no excuse for that. You can't justify that kind of behavior. But now you look back on it and you go, I know it wasn't right. I know it wasn't appropriate, but I screwed up and I'm human and here's what was going on for me. And
Right.
other people are going to go, yeah, I get that. And that is the piece, being that honest sort of with yourself and that loving and gentle acceptance of yourself, I think just jumps off the page. It jumps off the page. And the reader kind of goes, wow, you know what? If she can do all of that horrible stuff, then, maybe I can forgive myself for, I did something similar, or, and that's where you make connections on paper. That's the power, I think, of biography and memoir, because when you tell your story, you connect with your readers. Maybe not all of them.
Right.
Maybe some of them are going to be judgy as hell, and you got to know that's going to happen. But you can't please all the people all the time. But if we are driven to tell our stories. It's just in our DNA. I'm certain of that. We've been telling stories since we were ugh, oog, and erg, sitting around a campfire and
Exactly.
drawing on the wall, and we tell our stories. That's what we do, and we do that to connect with people, and to connect and to not feel alone, and and it's brave, and it's bold, and it's scary, and it's exciting, and it's compelling, and it's terrifying. And it's all of those things. And it's a wonderful, wonderful journey.
Yeah. So let's talk about what the gifts to the world are with a memoir. And you touch on this in the blog post that we were talking about, which kind of feeds into that DNA business. I mean, there's a beneficial role in telling your story and owning it. And let's talk about what that is and how it can help other people.
Yeah, I mean, sort of what I've already said, but I guess, I don't know. I think family, like a lot of people will write their memoirs and their biographies, in order to leave some form of a legacy. So I think that's one of the most common reasons, and by common I don't mean base, common as I mean like numerically. A lot of people, this is why they do it, not because it's such a common thing to do. It's a noble thing to do, in fact, to leave that legacy for your family. Especially if there's been some interesting thing that's happened in your life. You flew plane in World War II, or you gave birth to 8 people.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people will leave a legacy piece, and I think that the generations that follow, I mean, my grandmother, maybe this is what kind of got me into biography, and is my grandmother legacy piece, and my mother did the legacy piece, her parents, so my grandparents. On the other side of my family, my grandmother just passed last month. So, I have a lot of her photos. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a rough one. Can't talk about it yet. You know how that goes.
No, exactly. So, yes.
Yeah, moving on. Yeah. Something like crying on live TV. Anyway, so, but having her photographs and having my, my grandfather's words on the other side of the family, now we're going back a few years, who had recorded a lot. He was quite a storyteller. He told a lot of stories. And one day my mom just decided to start recording them, and then she typed them out. So it wasn't really it was more of an autobiography in that sense, that my mom didn't embellish, or because my mom's a writer too. She didn't embellish, she didn't add or anything. These were just straight up, this is how he talks. And it was really cool because, it was like I read them and I hear his voice in my head. He's there, this man that I grew up with, that I saw as a father figure, and was, a kind, beautiful, loving person who, sadly died of Alzheimer's. And in the last 7 years of his Alzheimer-ridden life, he was not that same person. So for me to have these stories before he got the Alzheimer's and became this confused, angry, paranoid person, I have this record of his kind, beautiful, sort of curious nature. It's really cool to have that. And then, of course, my mom wrote a piece just for my sister and I, primarily, and to have that is just an act of love. It's really as simple as that.
Yeah.
And it's perceived as such, and I think it strengthens family bonds. I know it has in my family. And I think it doesn't, it depends, of course, the content. I remember one client where she wasn't super flattering, towards her children. A little bit negative, I suppose. And I can't imagine that would have strengthened family bonds. But at the same time, it was important for her to state it how she saw it, and to, so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another way that it can help others is the beyond the legacy piece and the family connections that you talk about is, if you have gone through a traumatic experience and I mentioned earlier about you growing and changing as a person. And so it can offer hope, even if there's no miraculous recovery or something like that. The very fact that you've been able to write the memoir about the event, you're including the character arc, you're showing who you are today by the end of the book. It provides hope. People who maybe have had a similar experience can say, "Oh, all right, I'm feeling really crappy about this right now, but I can, if I just hang with it a little bit." So I think that's a really important thing.
You actually kind of make me think of another point that I think is important in writing memoir biography, is that I think that, you don't have to be dead to write, obviously, to write your memoir, your biography, because but when do you choose to write it? So if you're in the thick of things and you're still really, really conflicted or angry, you need to check your motives. Why are you writing this? Is this a revenge piece? Is this a mommy dearest? Or have you kind of gone through hell and you've healed, and now you just feel compelled to share it, and you feel compelled to share it from a position of strength and, if not love, then at least compassion for yourself and maybe the characters in your story. But yeah, writing memoir biography out of malice is a really bad idea. They sell a lot of books. You may actually become quite wealthy. Like I said, look at Mommy Dearest.
Until the lawsuits come in.
But the lawsuits will really win. Like, 100% guaranteed, and maybe justifiably, because there is a lot of venom out there, a lot of vitriol, and we don't need to be spreading that. But also, I think, moreover, aside from the lawsuits and just spreading vitriol, I think moreover, what'll happen is down the road you'll grow, you'll learn, you'll come to terms with things, and you'll go back and you'll read this and you'll go, "Oh God, I wish I had said that." Well, it's too late. You can't go back. It's been published. It's too late. You can write volume 2, but volume 1 is out there, So it's kind of like, is your future you going to appreciate what you're writing right now? It's a good thing to check your motives before you put pen to paper. Well, no, fine. Fill your boots, put pen to paper. It's a good thing to check your motives before you put it out in the world.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that we've kind of alluded to and danced around a little bit, but just maybe the last point that we'll touch on before we wrap up is how close you are. If there is something that's very painful or traumatic, recognizing where you are in your healing process and not starting to write it too soon, unless you are writing it very specifically for a therapeutic exercise that you are going to do a lot of work on, probably with somebody helping you before it's publish ready. And I would say there's 2 reasons for that. One is it's too easy when you're in that really full of pain, bursting with, discomfort state, to slip into the revenge, vitriol side. But the other thing is, it's painful to go through it the first time, and it's painful to go through it again when you are writing about it. And so I think it's important to be ready.
Yeah.
to write about it.
And we talk about anger and vitriol, but I think on the other side of that same coin is victimhood.
Right.
Writing, I mean, because we're the heroes of our own stories. That's the nature of it, right? But if we see ourselves as a victim, again, same thing. If down the road, I mean, you decide you're not a victim anymore, you're a survivor.
Right.
You go back and you read that and you go, wow, that isn't who I am anymore. I think that, I think when you do choose to sit down and write about your life, it helps to be able to see it through some clear lenses and to be writing it with some maturity. And if you've got any unresolved issues in there, it's probably better to work that out on the couch rather than, the internet.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this is fantastic. Lots of good food for thought, lots of good insights from, not just one memoir, but several with your experience. So I'm going to wrap it up. Is there anything else, any last thing you wanted to say?
I guess, we've talked about a lot of reasons why not to write your memoir, but I think probably the thing that I'd like to leave off with is that, in fact, writing memoir can be an absolutely powerful, moving experience, not only for the writer, but the reader as well, particularly in the case of legacy memoirs.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Agree 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I plug? Can I
Sure.
throw in here? Yeah. Okay. Yes. I am pleased that last year we published a memoir of hunting and fishing, which is interesting because I'm neither a hunter nor a fisher, but this was one of those opportunities to step out of my skin and into my client's skin, who was an avid, beautiful hunter and fisher. And he and I wrote, it took us about a better part of a year to get this out, but it is still sitting in the top 5, I think, in Amazon in both hunting and fishing memoirs a year later. So
awesome. And what's the title?
The author's name is, isn't it? Oh my gosh. The title is Sidetracks.
Sidetracks. Okay.
And I'm always forgetting I think it's 40 true stories of hunting and fishing. The marketing people always come up with the title, and so the subtitle, for some reason, doesn't stick in my head, probably because I didn't write it, and I'm like, I'm not going to remember that. But anyway, Gary Oberg is the author, and I'm there as the co-author. So these are his stories that he and I worked on together. So you'll find that on Amazon.
Well, I am going to go and find that link, and I will post it in the comments even after we're done, so that people can find it.
Good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, Trina Holt, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll sign off.
And we're out. Mic drop.